by way of drugs, or they got in touch with that spirit by way of meditation. The outcome was exactly the same. I saw this is on a news article this week, and there is no way in the world I'm going to show you the rest of not only this picture, but the rest of the pictures. But Billy Ray Cyrus's lovely daughter, Miley, you know, Hannah Montana, this child star that all these girls followed now. And if there was ever a mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, is Miley Cyrus. Anyway, she appears on stage recently with her marijuana dress. They go hand in hand. This goes all the way back to the 50s, even to the 40s, and to the 30s. People were taking drugs and writing songs. The Beatles got into it. Lucy and the Sky with Diamonds, LSD. I'm going to show you the lyrics of a song that I think John Lennon wrote. You're going to see what I'm talking about, because you're going to look at it and go, I have no idea what that means. It's because you're not high. If you're high, you go, that is like deep, man. Oh, that is so cool. Anyway, we mentioned Francis Crick, who was one of the scientists, him and Watson, an American scientist, working on what DNA looked like. How was it made up? What did it consist of? Since we can't see it in the microscope, we have to use all of our calculations and our theories, and it's very, very advanced. And so Crick basically, he related the idea that this formula for DNA was so profound and it was so complicated that normally his mind just wasn't, it was closed. It was like there was doors closed and he couldn't properly think about what this invisible thing called DNA looked like. So he admitted a few years ago, here's the story. Francis Crick, the Nobel Prize-winning father of modern genetics, was under the influence of LSD when he first deduced the double helix structure of DNA nearly 50 years ago. Yes, that's right. Francis Crick, because at the time when he was working on this around the time of Aldous Huxley. Francis Crick was a friend and a follower of Aldous Huxley. Who's Aldous Huxley? If you've ever heard of A Brave New World, if you've ever heard of Utopia, that's Aldous Huxley. He wrote of a time in the future where mankind had come into a perfected state. And when people got a little tired, when they were weary, when they were feeling down, then they could do something and it just pep them right up. They would take so many, and all of a sudden, oh wow, we're fine now. Sounds like the American housewife on methamphetamine. But anyway, Crick and Huxley, they knew of each other. Crick was following Huxley. Aldous Huxley admitted, let me pull this up here, Aldous Huxley admitted that he had taken drugs just for the experience. And so Crick took small amounts of LSD, this hallucinogenic drug, so that in his wording and in his mind, because there were doors that were closed, just like in Revelation 9, there were doors that were closed in his mind, and he wanted those doors open so that he could see into the world of the invisible. And he literally came downstairs one day, and let me go back to this graphic here. He grabbed his wife, who was an artist, and he said, honey, draw this out exactly the way I tell it to you. And that right there, you see it, is the first drawing, the first sketch of what DNA looks like. And there we see our twisted, curling serpents. And as I mentioned a while ago, Crick got the idea from this from Aldous Huxley, who wrote a book called The Doors of Perception. In this book, The Doors of Perception, he theorized that the human brain has doors built in that keep a person from perceiving realities around him or from experiencing religious ecstasies. Drugs such as mescaline, cannabis, and LSD would open those doors. Now, let me stop right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from the Bible what those doors are, and those doors are good. Those things that these experimenters, way back in the 40s and 50s, When they perceived that there were doors, Huxley perceived it, Crick bought into it, Timothy Leary, all of these others, they thought, well, you know, we got doors closed. Let's open the doors. They found out that LSD opened the door. The thing is, this Bible warns us that when we open that door, it's kind of like Pandora's box. Pandora's box is basically a very corrupted telling of what happened in Genesis chapter 3 when Eve ate of the fruit. And what happened? Now her eyes are open. That is exactly what people who take these drugs will say, oh, now I got my eyes open. Oh, now I can see things that I couldn't see before. You see the connection? And so they believed that there was these doors in your mind that needed to be open, and they wanted to find out a way to open them. And Huxley and Crick found out that if you take LSD, you can open those doors. And so it was Huxley's idea, his book, The Doors of Perception. That in itself, this idea of the doors of perception, there was a guy by the name of Jim Morrison. You know who that was? Rock and roll singer, part of the 27 Club. He's one of these rock and roll singers who died at 27. Kurt Cobain and several others, there's a whole list of them, that died when they were 27 years old. Jim Morrison died of drug overdose. Janis Joplin, drug overdose. The guy that played the guitar, I can't remember his name, but anyway, they all died of drug overdoses. Jim Morrison got his name for his rock group from Aldous Huxley's book, The Doors of Perception. And ask yourself the question. Now, from like 1967, 68 to the early to mid-70s, there was an explosion of what they called acid rock. Why did they call it acid rock? Because it burned when you burn your ears? No, they called it acid rock because when you took LSD, which was acidic, when you took LSD, you wrote the lyrics to these songs and you did guitar riffs that sounded better when you were high or when you were under a hallucinogenic than they did just normal. That's why normal straight people going, I can't listen to that. And high people are going, wow, that is so cool. Who was it to figure this out? And in 2001, The Space Odyssey. You remember the scene where Bowman is in the spaceship and he's traveling through the portal or whatever, and all of this stuff is going to... They actually marketed this movie to young people who were taking drugs and touted it as the ultimate trip. And there was people flocking to theaters watching Arthur C. Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and when that scene comes up, they're just going, oh, wow, that's tripping, dude. And 2001: A Space Odyssey, I've seen the movie. I've watched it probably half a dozen times, and I'm still trying to figure out what everything was. But people that were high, they got it. They understood it. It's about evolution. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But the influence that this initial idea, Huxley says we've got to have the doors open. Crick says, I opened the door. Guess what I saw? Two serpents twined together. Looks like DNA. And so he gets a Nobel Peace Prize for it. So now all these groups coming out, the doors. By the way, Jim Morrison referred to himself and others referred to him as the Lizard King. What's a lizard? It's a serpent. It's a dragon. They even have an album, The Celebration of the Lizard. But there's no doubt, no doubting, the idea, this is what Narby was trying to put forth, was that there was a relationship between what we're finding out as far as the basic things of the universe, like DNA, quantum physics, what's going on. We covered that in the last few Watchman broadcasts, quantum physics, what's going on with CERN. Definitely witchcraft related, things of the nature of rock and roll witchcraft related, and Narby and others are learning that what the shamans, what the medicine men, what the witch doctors knew thousands of years ago by experimenting with these entheogen drugs, scientists are finding out now that they knew something that most mankind did not know. Now, Let me show you a book. This is a book by Joan Bell, The Benefits of Marijuana. Because we're primarily dealing with marijuana, because marijuana is, and I've had several people call in this last week and say, Pastor, you were right. Marijuana was the gateway drug for me. I started out drinking a little liquor because my dad or my mom had it at home. Then with the neighbor kids, started smoking a little pot. I mentioned to you last week, kid down the road from me, his parents were growing marijuana, using it regularly, growing their own, so they didn't have to buy it, okay? Had a little place down in the basement of their house where they took very good care of these plants. But anyway, legalization of this seemingly harmless drug called marijuana, now legal for recreational use. You want something to party with? Go to the store. Hey, honey, go to the store and get me a bag of pot, please. Get me a dime bag, please. Okay? So, yeah, I know some of the lingo. But anyway, recreational use in Colorado, Washington State, medicinal use in other states, they're moving in. The danger, and the thing is, if you don't ever start doing this stuff, you will never have to worry about it. But the whole goal, it's just like the sodomites moving in everywhere. Here we are with sodomy being legalized, sodomite weddings being legalized, and drugs being legalized all at once. Actively being promoted by the American government, being promoted and pushed on people, being pushed at the Olympics, being pushed in advertising. We're being forced and led like sheep to the slaughter into these corrals surrounded by evil people, surrounded by drug-crazed people, drug-influenced people, thus spiritually influenced people. Notice what is written in this book about marijuana and what it does to your mind. When the system is hyper-aroused, as in today's lifestyle, marijuana calms. The significance of this fact cannot be ignored. It explains the increased creativity reported as part of the marijuana experience, because when both sides of the brain processes are heightened, both types of brain activity are greater. The left brain notices more while the right brain receives more. This is the unification of logic and intuition. I'm going to explain what all this means in a minute. The term expansion of consciousness is explained physiologically as, quote, a shifting of brain emphasis from one-sidedness to balance, which fits precisely with the feeling called high. Marijuana ingestion has been shown to change the worried state by producing alpha waves experienced as well-being. Now, for those of you who study the Scripture and you don't know what it's like to be stoned on pot or any other drug. Maybe you've been drunk before or whatever, okay? Let me show you get what she's explaining. The idea of balance is practically in every one of these. I know it's in this one, Quantum Spirituality, the Aquarian Conspiracy, Morals and Dogma. Morals and Dogma is all about balance. It's the square and the compass balanced together, the yin and the yang, and that's basically what you have, the two sides of your brain. The left, I'm going to explain this in more detail. The left side of your brain deals with logic. The right side of your brain deals with intuition, feelings, and all kinds of anything that's illogical and free-ranging. That's this side of the brain. And for the most part, this side of my brain, the logic side of my brain, is what's in the lead. Marijuana takes that and makes it simmer down a little bit. And then it raises up the other side of the brain and brings them up so now they are equal. Think of sons of God, daughters of men. Think of Daniel 2, this is what we're dealing with, fourth kingdom. They shall mingle them, iron, shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, clay. Iron is what is hard, it's static, it doesn't move, it doesn't change. That's this side of your brain. It only sees yes and no, right and wrong, left and right, light and darkness. That's all it